guys? It's Sean again with the Commands of Christ, and today it's Be Perfect. And over the years, I've heard so many people say things derogatory, towards people that's aim is to perfection. It's always always just such a negative concept. When you say perfect, when Jesus said to be perfect, I guess the question is, did he mean arrogant? Did he mean be a butthole? Did he mean be snappy and think you know everything? Like you'll hear somebody say, oh, well, they think they're perfect. I mean, that whole thing I don't think that's what he was talking about. When you look at his sermon on the Mount, he starts out in the Beatitudes, and the meat of what Christians are to live, the main concept of what we're to do is in chapter 5. Chapter 7 encompasses the what if, false disciples, false prophets. It's more of a warning and kind of a Cliff Notes version on, how to determine who's real and who's fake. Chapter 5 covers almost every aspect of what you'll encounter being a Christian. How to treat your family. In the Beatitudes, he kind of gives this poetic example of what our attitude is to be spiritually. How we should want him. It reminds me of like a Psalm of David. It's really beautiful. You'll hear it a lot, but that's how he starts it off, is with the Beatitudes, and he talks about salt and light. He's saying that if salt loses its saltiness, in other words, if what makes us palatable to God, if that is lost, he has no use for us anymore. It'd be like if you were going to eat a steak and you go to put seasoning on it, and the seasoning has no flavor. It's basically dirt. Get it out of here. I mean, it's no different with him and us. And he uses the analogy of the light of the world. He says that you are the light of the world, a city on a hill, and that you can't be hidden. It's impossible for you to be hidden. If you are a city on a hill, you cannot be hidden. So the question is, are you a city on a hill? Are you the light of the world? That's the question. We go on to the fulfillment of the law. And the next text is the fulfillment of the law. He's saying that he didn't come to change the law, but to fulfill the law. Which law? We talked about this the other day. Is he talking about the law of Moses, the Torah? What are we talking about? So if you look and see the things that Jesus concerns himself with out of all his commands, they all encompass the 10 Commandments. What Jesus taught comes from the law of Moses. So the law of Moses and Jesus worked together. He fulfilled the law of Moses. What men once couldn't do, they can now through Christ, and more. And he's saying that if you denounce the law of Moses, you're least in the kingdom of heaven. So we definitely don't want to do that. Murder is obvious, but he's saying that, well, let's 1 second step back. Fulfillment of the law. So in the fulfillment of the law, he's saying that if you don't exceed what the Pharisees and the Sadducees do, you'll never enter the kingdom of God. He's confirming that there's more than just the 10 Commandments. There's his commands. His commands supersede, by leaps and bounds, the 10 Commandments. It's a breakdown, and it goes into specifics of the Ten Commandments. In murder, he's saying that if you're angry with a brother, you committed murder. What? If you're angry with a brother. Moves on adultery. He said if we look at a woman lustfully, we committed adultery in our heart. Crazy. And he goes on a divorce. He's saying that, we shouldn't do that. It shouldn't happen. Not unless she cheats on us. And even then, he doesn't say you have to. He moves on to oaths. Be a man of your word. Say you're going to do what you're going to do, and do it. If you say yes, do it. If you say no, stand behind no. An eye for an eye. The old system, somebody's jamming. The old system is, somebody takes out a tooth, they're going to lose a tooth. Jesus is saying, they take out a tooth, let them take out another tooth. What? It's just crazy how humble and selfless he wants us to be. And then he moves on to love for your enemies. This is the most challenging thing. Every day in life, all of these situations that he's covered, we live it every day. This is looking at other women, getting angry with your brother, love for your enemy, not trying to get back at people, being a man of your word, all of those things. And then in the Beatitudes, he's talking about your hunger for God, your attitude, your spiritual attitude. He's saying, this is your day every day. This is how you start it. At the end of this, in chapter 5, he says, be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. And people get so tripped out. I've never even heard that mentioned in church. Why? Because it's such a negative conception. It's never, you can't be perfect. That's all you hear about. You'll hear preachers talk about how perfect you can't be, how perfect they're not. But what does it mean to be perfect? I look back, Jesus gave analogy that he's the good shepherd. He's the good shepherd. And I was telling somebody a story earlier about how shepherds, when a sheep would wander off, the shepherd would break his legs and hoist it up on his shoulders and carry him around. And then from that moment on, why, question is, why does sheep wander in the first place? I don't know. It saw a rabbit in the field. Maybe it saw greener grass and was heading over to it. Anyway, sheep wanders away. It's going to get killed. It's going to die. So the shepherd says, well, look, rather than lose the sheep, I'll break his legs. He'll be dependent on me for food and water and safety. And we'll gain a closer relationship. In the end, the sheep will never leave my side. God's the same way. Well, the sheep may have broken legs, guys, but the legs heal. But that sheep is perfect. It's perfect. You're looking at the legs and saying, well, that ain't perfect. You're looking at discolorations in the fur and saying, well, it's perfect as it can be. It cannot be. God's view of perfect and our view of perfect are different. He wouldn't tell you to be perfect if you couldn't do it. He gives you a breakdown of how to be. His version of what perfect is for you is given to you in a fundamental list. And he's saying, here's the list. This is how you do it. But the devil would like to convince us, oh, it can't be done. I'm sorry, it just can't be done. Well, that's not true. That's not true. Jesus was the only person without sin. He's not saying, you have to be sinless. It's impossible. You're a redeemed sinner. Jesus wasn't a sinner. So if you're trying to be Jesus Christ, you will fail. I get that concept. But we're not talking about sinless perfection. We're talking about God's definition of perfect for a human being. And that's that list. I think that if we aim for what's on that list, we cannot go wrong. And if we fail, guess what? Hey, we might get our legs broken, but we'll be on the shoulders of the right guy. Anyway, I hope you guys are blessed. I thank you for listening, and man, can't wait to share with you guys tomorrow. We're going to be coming up on a Sabbath again, and I'd love to hear back from any of you guys that have anything to share, any videos, comments. Just hit us up. Thanks.